Ben Shapiro, man with the most fleek eyebrows and a personified wedgie, is big mad about Californians defeating the recall of Governor Newsom. He is so mad, and he's taken it pretty far. The first thing he's doing is, like himself, a former Californian, he's encouraging Republicans in that state to leave it. Take a look.
If you're a Republican in California, things are gonna get worse, not better. I've been saying this since I left, right? Follow me, get out while the getting is good. Move to a purple state, turn that state red. California is a lost cause. I know there are a bunch of people who are hanging on over there. I was one of them until a year ago. I'm much happier now that I have left the state. The state is, again, in an inexorable state of decline. The voters there are not interested in turning away from the path that they are now trotting. They're not turning away from higher taxes. They're not turning away from more regulation. They're not turning away from terrible records on crime and horrible records on education. They're not turning away from any of that stuff. They're embracing it. They're embracing the suck. So get out while the getting is good. There's plenty of opportunity in other states.
Yeah, go. Bye.
Yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, exactly. Follow Ben Shapiro. Get out while the going is good. I don't know. This is, and I just love this because as someone who lives here, and like he's so terrified we're moving in the wrong direction on everything. Oh, no. I mean, look, there are things that Gavin Newsom is not doing well, but there are also things like providing healthcare to undocumented people that I firmly believe in, that I think is gonna keep all of us healthier and safer, and that we rely on the work of documented and undocumented immigrants all the time in this state and in the country. So honestly, this whole exodus out of California, David, I mean, personally, I'm like, I'd love to see it. Goodbye. Go. And that's not to say that look, it takes money to move out of the state. So if Ben Shapiro is gonna help the, Republicans get the money to move, that's great. And I'm not saying that, people should only move. We do have to make sure that this state works for everybody, and that we, close the income inequality gaps, right? That we make big tech pay their fair share, that we stop climate change, right? That we end the unhoused epidemic here, that we have rent control, that we get the real estate lobbyists under control, fossil fuel lobbies. We got a lot of work to do, but we don't need the Larry Elders and his followers. We don't need the Ben Shapiro nerds and their followers and their trickle down economics like guffing it all up. So go, fine. I'm totally fine with that.
It also strikes me, I mean, what whiners, what losers. I mean, the context of this is there's Ben Shapiro because Larry Elder did not win, because Gavin Newsom was not recalled. Oh, that's the moment when, we lost an election, so everybody get out of California. Well, you know what? Ben Shapiro could have told California Republicans to get out 3 months ago, 6 months ago, but he chooses the day after the election recall. And oh, by the way, an election recall where the leading Republican was suggesting, even before the votes were tabulated, that there was fraud. So they claim fraud on the front end when it looks like they're gonna lose. Then they lose, and instead of being a gracious loser and shaking the hand and saying, okay, you won, we'll see you in the next round, it's, well, I'm gonna take my ball and I'm gonna go home, or I'm gonna take it to Arizona or Texas. I mean, that is the consummate whiner. You teach your children to be gracious losers. And these are not gracious losers, they are whiners.
And I'm just gonna say, look, love it or leave it, buddy. Just love it or leave it. But which is a little bit what Ben Shapiro continues to say, because that's not what the headline of his little rant over there. He continued and has an even more extreme suggestion for this country based on this failed recall that clearly was going to fail in this blue state. Take a look.
So on a national level, why should we care about California? Because what it actually presages is not just politics in California. What it presages is a question: whether we actually do want to remain part of the same body politic. If we do want to remain part of the same body politic, we're going to have to construct a system of a federal governance in which Texas can be Texas and California can be California. However, California has to let Texas be Texas. I think this is why you're hearing so much talk these days about a quote unquote civil war, or talk about secession, or talk about the country breaking apart. It's a serious question. Whenever you form a body politic, which is what happened at the founding and what happened again in the aftermath of the Civil War, if you form a body politic, you have to decide whether you wish to remain part of the same country. And if so, what common rules can you hold at the top level that everybody can agree to? Well, if the basic notion of American government is that the federal government's going to make all the rules and it's just going to be a struggle for the power of the one ring, then this country is not going to last this way. It is just not. And maybe then the best hope for a lot of conservatives and maybe for a lot of liberals, depending on who's in control of that federal government, is a friendly separation.
Oh, a conscious uncoupling of the United States of America. There's Ben Shapiro essentially arguing for secession because the California recall did not go his way and the Republicans' way. David, thoughts on that?
I mean, Ben Shapiro ought to be careful what he wishes for, because the last time I checked, if you look at Republican states versus Democratic states, Republican states get a lot more money back from the federal government than they send in terms of tax revenue. Democratic states, state after state, contributes far more money to the federal government than they get back in return. So fine, you want to separate out these Republican states, these southern states, have at it and look at your economy and try to deal with your economy without the help of taxpayers in all of these blue states. So fine, you want to separate? I mean, never mind that it's against the law, that we fought a civil war, that it's considered treason. But don't put it past the Ben Shapiros, who, by the way, I mean, it's so interesting. Some Republicans say, oh yeah, he's an intellectual. He's not an intellectual. You ask any academics or intellectual, and they will tell you Ben Shapiro is a fraud. He does not know anything of what he's talking about, but because he talks fast, some conservatives apparently can't follow him. And they think, oh, he must be really smart, when he's really not.
That's very funny. It is amazing. There's like, yeah, well, it's moving real quick at me, therefore it must be smart. It's like how people think that like British, people in the UK and in the English, the whole thing, that they sound smart because their accents. I actually think that clearly. But I just love the idea that he's like peaceful. Oh, it can be peaceful. We'll just have a peaceful little separation. We'll have all the crazy gun nuts over here, armed to the teeth, and then all of the the immigrants, the people of color, the people who the LGBTQ community over here. All the weed, obviously. I mean, it sounds like, I don't know if we're ever gonna actually, that feels like a worse neighbor to have. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's better that we have to work together than being than having just an incredibly armed, psychotic, jingoistic neighbor to the next to you. That's me. That being said.
It's so overly simplistic, right? I mean, and that's the way these conservative pundits work. They oversimplify things, and then when you get into the fine print, when you tell some conservative audience, okay, here's what secession would actually look like, here's what it would mean for your state to succeed, and here's all the problems and challenges, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. It's sort of like when you tell people who are against vaccines, well, your children are already required to get vaccines against mumps and rubella and measles and all the other things. Like, oh really? And it's like a newsflash to them. But there's this simplistic thinking that goes on that makes it impossible for these people to be rational. And of course, they're misled by cynical pundits like Ben Shapiro, who realize his audience is stupid. They're never going to be very sophisticated about the understanding of what secession would actually mean. So it's okay for him to make it so simplistic as, oh, we can just peacefully get along. We can all get along and be good for liberals too. Well, that's not how things work.
No, I mean, as much as I honestly hope that California breaks into the Pacific Ocean and we can just go over and chill with Hawaii and then we can be just a greater Hawaii, that is my ultimate goal. I do know that it is unconstitutional. It's not allowed. Obviously, we fought a damn civil war over it, and we might, it seems like the issues that are coming to a head still have to do with the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow and an unfinished reconstruction in this country, and we got to work that out together, y'all. Sorry, I wish we could take the easy way out, but we can't, right? There is a part of me, if this were a relationship, I'd be like, you go your own way, bro. You got your own problems, and you need to just not blame anyone except yourself. I'd like to see you try, but then the reality is, no, we're in this together, and we have to be. Provided that we eliminate the Electoral College, which is my stipulation for staying.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.